Hello, and welcome back to History Whispers. I'm your host, Mark Robinson, and today we're diving into one of the most powerful books ever written. We're going to explore 7 of the most important and powerful lessons from Paulo Coelho's modern classic, The Alchemist. Now, I know we usually talk about history's greatest minds, philosophies, and forgotten revolutions, but this book, it's a different kind of history, a personal kind. The Alchemist isn't just a story about a boy chasing treasure. It's a reflection, a spiritual roadmap for anyone who's ever had a dream and then questioned if they were worthy of it. So in today's episode, we're focusing on a lesson that has echoed across time, cultures, and personal journeys. Stick with me, because we're not just breaking down the philosophy, we're connecting it to real-life stories, modern examples, and maybe even your own journey with this book. Lesson 1. The theme: finding your personal legend. At the heart of The Alchemist is a concept that sounds mystical, but it's actually one of the most grounding ideas you'll ever come across. It's called your personal legend. Now, what is that really? Well, according to Paulo Coelho, your personal legend is your true purpose, the reason you're here. That dream you had as a child, when you said, "I want to be an astronaut, or a musician, or build my own business," before life and, let's be honest, society told you to be more realistic. Just let that sit for a second. Not bills, not expectations, not titles or jobs or diplomas. Your only real obligation is to pursue your true desire. Now that's powerful. And the story of Santiago, our shepherd protagonist, is the story of someone brave enough to follow that calling. He gives up comfort, safety, even love, in pursuit of what his heart tells him is meant to be. But let's face it, most people don't. Most people don't follow their dreams, not because they don't have them, but because somewhere along the way, life convinces them not to. Fear kicks in, doubt creeps in. We worry about what people might say. We tell ourselves we're being realistic. We settle, not because we want to, but because it feels safer. And here's the quote that cuts right to the heart of it. People are afraid to pursue their most important dreams because they feel that they don't deserve them or that they'll be unable to achieve them. But there's another belief that holds us back, and Coelho calls it the greatest lie of all. At a certain point in our lives, we lose control of what is happening to us, and our lives become controlled by fate. That's the world's greatest lie. And that lie, it's everywhere. It's in the way people say, "It's too late for me." It's in the way we give up and start going through the motions. We surrender control and start believing life is just something that happens to us. But Coelho's message is clear. That's not true. You still have a choice, you still have a say, and you still have a chance. Every day, there are people climbing Everest in their 60s, earning degrees in their 70s, chasing passions they gave up on decades ago. People rewriting their lives, not because fate allowed it, but because they decided to take it back. So this first lesson, the theme of the personal legend, it shines a spotlight on the gap between what society tells us and what's actually possible. It reminds us that the only thing standing between you and your calling might just be a belief that isn't even real. And that's why The Alchemist endures. Because it doesn't just speak to your dream, it speaks to the moment you finally start listening to it again. So, here's your takeaway. Your personal legend is real. It's still alive. And no matter how far off track you feel, the road back is always open. All right, let's talk about Chapter 2. And this is where things get mystical, magical, and surprisingly, practical. One of the most powerful ideas in The Alchemist is this: when you truly want something, the whole universe helps you achieve it. That's not just a poetic line, it's a philosophy, a way of seeing the world. The book teaches us that everything around you, from the birds in the sky to the sands of the Sahara, from the desert winds to the glint of a stone, is speaking, not in words, but in signs, in symbols, in feelings. This is what Paulo Coelho calls the language of the world. When Santiago begins to follow his dream, he doesn't just take steps. He starts to listen. He starts to notice. Suddenly, life itself is a kind of whispering guide. The problems he faces, they're not just obstacles, they're signals. When you want something with all your heart, that's when you are closest to the soul of the world. It's always a positive force. That line reframes everything. It means that passion, desire, and clarity are not just inner forces. They're how you tap into something bigger than yourself, a universal flow, a guiding rhythm. And this isn't just fiction. We've seen this play out in real life. Take Colonel Sanders, the founder of KFC. At the age of 65, broke and nearly hopeless, he went door to door trying to sell his fried chicken recipe. He was rejected over 1,000 times, literally. But the moment he committed, opportunities eventually aligned. He wasn't lucky, he was aligned. Or take J.K. Rowling. Before Harry Potter, she was a single mother living on welfare, writing in cafes with a baby sleeping beside her. Every publisher turned her down, until one didn't. And the rest? Well, it's history. It's not magic, it's alignment. In The Alchemist, Santiago receives 2 stones from the king, Urim and Thummim. One means yes, one means no. They're not meant to make every choice for him. They're meant to remind him that life communicates, and we need to listen. These symbols, the stones, the wind, the hawks, the desert, they all become Santiago's compass. Not because they're enchanted, but because he pays attention. He trusts that the path will make itself known step by step if he keeps walking with intention. And here's the practical truth. When you give your 100% to a goal, a mission, a dream, things begin to shift. People start appearing, paths open. Not immediately, not always obviously, but consistently. Because when you commit fully, when you want something with all your heart, the world doesn't stay silent. So, here's this lesson's takeaway. Listen, watch, trust. The universe is already speaking. You just have to believe you're worth the conversation. All right, welcome to Lesson 3. And this one hits deep because it's something all of us face: fear. We've talked about dreams, we've talked about the universe helping you, but none of that matters if this one emotion gets in the way, and it always tries to. Fear is the single biggest barrier between you and your dream. Not lack of talent, not money, not resources, it's fear. And Paulo Coelho in The Alchemist delivers this timeless reminder. Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself. Think about that. Most of the time, what we imagine will happen is way worse than what actually happens. It's not the failure that hurts, it's the fear of it. We create scenarios in our mind where everything goes wrong, where people laugh at us, where we lose everything, and that stops us before we even start. But here's the twist. Fear is a liar. It's loud, yes, but it's rarely accurate. In The Alchemist, Santiago's journey is full of moments where fear could have made him turn back. The fear of leaving his flock, the fear of being robbed, the fear of crossing the desert, even the fear of finally finding the treasure and it not being what he hoped. But he keeps going. Why? Because each time he moves through fear, something greater is waiting on the other side. Growth, wisdom, clarity, and a step closer to his dream. Now, let's bring it into real life. Think of someone like Oprah Winfrey, told as a child that she'd never make it in TV. Imagine if she had listened to that fear. Or Elon Musk, who started companies in industries where failure rates are nearly guaranteed. The fear was there, but so was the mission. And that's what it really comes down to. Fear will always exist. You can erase it, but you can make it irrelevant by keeping your eye on the goal. Here's the truth. Courage isn't being fearless. Courage is acting while still afraid. And when you do, something incredible happens. The fear shrinks, the path clears, and you realize it was never as bad as you imagined. So here's your takeaway from Lesson 3. Don't wait for fear to disappear. It won't, but step forward anyway, because the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself. And your dream? It's waiting on the other side of that fear. All right, now we're moving into something that most people overlook when they talk about success, purpose, or achieving dreams. We focus so much on where we're going, the goal, the treasure, the end point, that we forget the real magic happens along the way. And The Alchemist captures this beautifully. Making a decision was only the beginning of things. When someone makes a decision, he is really diving into a strong current that will carry him to places he had never dreamed of when he first made the decision. That line isn't just poetic, it's real. You see, we often believe that making a decision is the final step. I'm going to follow my dream. Boom, done. But in reality, that decision is just the spark, the beginning of a current that starts pulling you, testing you, changing you. In Santiago's journey, the destination, the treasure, is what pulls him forward. But the real transformation happens between the starting point and the end. He works in a crystal shop. He learns to read omens. He meets the Englishman. He listens to the desert. He falls in love. All of that growth, it never would have happened if he had only focused on the outcome. And that's the lesson here. The journey is not a distraction from the goal. It's part of the goal. In life, we tend to be impatient. We want results, fast. But personal legends aren't delivered in express shipping. They're built through experience, failures, relationships, and reflection. You may set out to be a musician and discover you're also a mentor. You may launch a business and become someone who inspires others. You may follow your dream to one destination and find a greater calling you never expected. That's what Coelho means by places he had never dreamed of. Making the decision to begin is brave, but staying committed as the journey unfolds, often in messy, surprising, even uncomfortable ways, is what shapes you into the person who's worthy of the dream. So, if you're in the middle of your journey right now, maybe things aren't going how you planned, or you feel off course, don't quit. You're not off track. You're just in the current, and that current is carrying you to exactly where you need to be. Here's your takeaway from Lesson 4. Don't fall in love with the treasure, fall in love with the walk toward it, because who you become on the way is the real reward.
Now let's talk about Lesson 5, and this one's a life changer. If you're someone who hesitates, who overthinks, who's scared of messing up, this is your moment, because the Alchemist makes one thing very clear. Failure is not the end, it's part of the process. The secret of life is to fall 7 times and get up 8. Simple, right? But it's everything. This line from the book reminds us that mistakes, detours, and even massive failures aren't signs you're doing it wrong. They're signs you're doing it. They're proof that you're in motion, that you're learning, that you're human. In The Alchemist, Santiago doesn't walk a straight line to his treasure. He gets robbed, he gets stuck, he doubts himself. But each setback teaches him something vital about people, about the world, about himself. And without those failures, he never would have become the person ready to receive the treasure. So let's bring it down to earth. Here are 3 real-life examples that prove this truth. 1. Walt Disney. Before he built the Empire of Dreams, Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. Can you believe that? He even faced bankruptcy multiple times. But each failure taught him resilience. He used every mistake as fuel, and eventually, he built one of the most imaginative brands the world has ever seen. 2. Vera Wang. She was a competitive figure skater who didn't make the Olympic team. Then she tried journalism, but it didn't satisfy her. It wasn't until age 40 that she entered the fashion world. And guess what? She failed several times before her brand took off. But today, she's one of the most iconic bridal designers on the planet. 3. Thomas Edison. Over 1,000 failed attempts before he created the light bulb. He didn't see them as failures, he called them steps. He believed every mistake brought him closer to the answer. And without those missteps, we might still be sitting in the dark. Mistakes aren't the opposite of success, they're the path to it. That's the real lesson here. Resilience is what defines your journey. Mistakes are just feedback. They're not a reflection of your worth. They're instructions on how to get better. So, if you've stumbled lately, if something didn't work out, if you feel like you failed, good. You're on the right track. Now get up again one more time than you fall. Because as Coelho reminds us, the secret of life is to fall 7 times and get up 8.
And now we arrive at Lesson 6, a lesson people often get confused about. Because we've all heard it before, right? If you really love someone, you'll stay. If they loved you, they wouldn't go. But The Alchemist challenges that narrative entirely. It flips the idea of love on its head and gives us something far more powerful. In the book, Santiago falls in love with a woman named Fatima at an oasis in the middle of the desert. It's a real connection, honest, deep, spiritual. But it comes right in the middle of his journey, at a moment where he has a choice: follow love or follow his dream. And here's what Fatima says to him: "If I am really a part of your dream, you'll come back one day." Just take that in for a second. Fatima doesn't beg him to stay. She doesn't guilt him into choosing her. She lets him go because she understands something most people miss. Love never keeps a man from pursuing his personal legend. If he abandons that pursuit, it's because it wasn't true love, the love that speaks the language of the world. That's what true love is. It doesn't hold you back. It holds space for you. It doesn't demand your sacrifice. It wants to see you shine. True love isn't a cage. It's the wind at your back. And honestly, that's rare, but it's real. Let me share a few examples of this from the real world. 1. Michelle and Barack Obama. Long before the White House, Barack was chasing a vision. Law school, activism, community leadership. It took time, sacrifice, and separation. But Michelle didn't hold him back. She challenged him, supported him, believed in his path. Their relationship thrived because their love made room for purpose. 2. Marie Curie and Pierre Curie. They were both scientists and both driven by passion, but neither asked the other to give it up. In fact, their love fueled their work. They supported each other's research. Marie went on to win 2 Nobel Prizes because her love didn't ask her to be smaller, it asked her to be greater. 3. Chris Gardner, The Pursuit of Happyness. He faced poverty, homelessness, single fatherhood, all while chasing a dream of being a stockbroker. He didn't have romantic love holding him up, but he had fatherly love. And it was that love that pushed him forward, not backward. His love for his son made him more determined, not less. That's the key. Real love, the kind that lasts, doesn't demand that you give up your dream. Because here's the truth. Sacrificing your personal legend for love doesn't preserve the love, it poisons it. You'll carry resentment, regret, and that eats away at the very thing you were trying to protect. Love and purpose don't compete, they complement. So if someone truly loves you, they won't ask you to shrink. They'll want to see you rise. And if you truly love someone, you'll rise, and you'll bring them with you. That's what Fatima understood, and that's what the Alchemist teaches. Here's your takeaway from Lesson 6. Don't choose between love and dreams. Choose love that walks with your dreams. Because the right person, they'll never stand in your way. They'll be waiting, cheering, and believing, just like Fatima.
And now we arrive at the final lesson in our journey through The Alchemist, and it's one that hits harder the older you get. Your comfort zone is not your sanctuary, it's your prison. In the book, Santiago meets a character that stays with you, not because he's a hero, but because he's a warning. The Crystal Merchant. This man owns a small crystal shop on a hill. He's not struggling, he's not thriving either. He's just surviving, day after day, safe, predictable, stuck. He tells Santiago he's always wanted to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca. It's his dream. He's saved the money, he has the time, but he never goes. And when Santiago asks why, the merchant says, "I'm afraid that if my dream is realized, I'll have no reason to go on living." That line is haunting, because we all know someone like that. Maybe we are someone like that. Someone who clings to a routine, a steady paycheck, a familiar rhythm, even if it's unfulfilling, because the unknown is just too scary. But here's the truth. Comfort zones are silent killers. They convince you that safety is more valuable than purpose, that staying still is better than risking change, that maybe you'll go after your dream someday. But someday never comes. Let's look at some real-life examples. 1. The crystal merchant in real life, the corporate lifer. There are countless stories of people who spent 30 years in jobs they didn't love, only to retire and say, "I wish I had done what I really wanted." That's not just regret, that's a life half-lived. People who always wanted to start a business, paint, travel, or write a book, but never left the comfort of a stable job. 2. Andre Ingram, basketball player. At age 32, after over a decade in the NBA G League, Andre could have quit, taken a coaching job, stayed safe, but he didn't. He kept pushing, and in 2018, he finally got called up to the Lakers. His debut, he scored 19 points, one of the most emotional debuts in NBA history, because he didn't let comfort win.
3. Grandma Moses, painter. She started painting in her late 70s. Before that, she was a housekeeper, a farmer, never trained in art, but she didn't let age or comfort stop her. She picked up a brush and her work went on to hang in galleries across the world because she refused to believe her time had passed. The lesson? Comfort isn't always kindness. Sometimes it's the voice that says, "Don't bother, it's too risky, you're okay where you are." But okay is not the same as alive. The Crystal Merchant teaches us what happens when we betray our dreams for comfort. We grow bitter, not better. We keep the dream close enough to talk about, but never close enough to touch. And that slowly kills the spirit. So here's your takeaway from Lesson 7. If your life is too comfortable, ask yourself, what are you not doing because it's too risky? Because that's probably exactly where your dream is hiding. And unlike the Crystal Merchant, you still have time to chase it. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of the most powerful books, the very first in our brand new series where we explore the greatest lessons from the greatest books of all time. Thank you so much for watching and being part of this journey through The Alchemist, a book that continues to inspire dreamers, seekers, and thinkers across the world. Now this is just the beginning. This series is something new we're trying here on History Whispers, and we'd love to make it a regular feature with your help. So here's what I'd love from you. Head down to the comments and let us know. What book should we cover next? What's your favorite book? Your suggestions will help shape the next episodes. And yes, don't forget to subscribe and like our channel. But for now, as we close this chapter, I want to thank you again for being here, for listening, for thinking deeply, for daring to dream. Until next time, I'll meet you with another book and another set of powerful lessons that just might change your life. Take care, stay curious, and keep following your own legend.